Alright, this is going to be the second part of the Repent review, Repent by Akusaka. We're going to start on chapter 3 as the first part covered chapters 1 to 2. It's been maybe a month since the last reading. I don't quite remember. About a month, maybe a little more than that. So in the first part, we were introduced to the two senseis, which quickly became one sensei, our protagonist, who is now very disdainful of all the students who clearly showed no remorse toward him, except for a very select few, most of which are either hospitalized or, in Alice's case, out for revenge. This time we are on Trinity with the Makeup Work Club, who is also allied with Sensei and probably the only faction within Trinity in this story who is allied with our Sensei. So, Chapter 3, New Trinity. I don't remember a lot of the voices I used, so if any recurring characters appear, I'll have to come up with voices that are hopefully reminiscent of what I did last time. Otherwise, it's just go with the flow. Hanako stopped in front of the door leading to the tea party's grand balcony. The brown antique-style door was defiled by countless graffiti, wildly drawn in red paint that almost covered the high-class wood. Die, die, die. Down with the witch. Leave Trinity, we won't follow you. Now, first off, this is obviously, if I'm not mistaken, about Mika and the whole post-V3 thing. The only thing here is that Mika was actually one of the students who, again, very surprisingly, but I'm not going to go over that again, was against this sensei. And I'm not sure if there's any correlation between the conflict between Mika and the rest of the students that just dislike her for existing versus all of those students also happening to be against the protagonist sensei, at least before he came back. I don't know if there's supposed to be like a redemption plotline with Mika, or if this is just supposed to be maybe a reference or a call to the events of V3. The writing was an absolute mess, almost resembling that of fresh blood splatter, showing the sheer hatred behind the ones who wrote it. Hanako also saw hints of dried up saliva and dusty footprints on the lower side of the door. Some seemed they were over a day, and some seemed to be fresh, barely done 10 minutes ago. If someone who didn't know any better saw this, they wouldn't think it'd be the entrance leading to the most prestigious and elegant leaders of Trinity, and more like something you'd find in a dirty, rat-infested alleyway leading to a cheap, run-down brothel that anyone with a brain cell would know better to avoid. How fitting. Hanako couldn't help but to chuckle at the sheer absurdity. One of Trinity's most important places was vandalized this much, and yet there wasn't even an attempt to clean up this mess. Normally, these kinds of actions wouldn't have been allowed, let alone thought of in the first place. And by sheer coincidence, a small smudge would appear on the door. The cleaning staff would instantly come rushing in within minutes, clean the door along with the entire room until everything was spotless. But the door seemed to be kept in this poor state for days. Even so that the crude graffiti had completely dried down. And this all happened under Trinity's security. Hanako had yet heard of anyone being punished for neglection of work, or even the vandalism itself. Nobody seemed to care. This is what the tea party had become. Leadership that even low-class janitors didn't respect. It seemed like such a bad joke that Hanako just had to laugh at it. Are you alright, Hanako? I'm fine, thank you. Perfectly fine. With a warm smile, Hanako dismissed one of the worried students that accompanied her. In fact, she was surrounded in quite the number of people, enough to make the wide, classy hallway feel a bit crowded. Now, shall we? Hopefully there are not more sound effects I have to make. So far, we know that Hanako and the rest of the Makeup Work Club are going to be among Trinity's only allies to Sensei. I assume so. Then again, I'm not sure if Hanako right now is assuming the role of like a de facto leader, given that the tea party is completely shut down in this scenario, or if that maybe there's a faction of Trinity students who are allied with Sensei, or at least not totally against him, or were never infatuated by the older second Sensei. So it's possible that Sensei might have a larger following than we expect. Then again, for the sake of the story, I think it would make more sense if Sensei's whole party was a very small number, so that the revenge story would carry a lot more weight. Otherwise, if there were like a lot of students who were still allied with him, despite all the trauma and stuff that the students were doing to him in the backstory, it wouldn't be as powerful if he still had a lot of people on his side, like genuinely on his side, not people who are trying to piggyback because they're scared of him, like people who were never with the second sensei and looks past his charms or whatever. So I'm not sure if this is just for this scene alone, like for example what I was talking about with the original writing on the wall, literally with the graffiti towards Mika, or if this is actually relevant to what's going to happen later on. The messy wooden door flung open with a push from Hanako's hand. At the same time, Nagisa and Seiya flinched at Hanako's arrival, followed by the wave of at least 20 students rushing inside the room like a tidal wave, all heavily armed with their faces covered in gas masks. So Arius, I'm not sure. Oh, then it's possible that Hanako recruited the Arius students on behalf of the now deceased Arius squad. That would make a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, no, then in that case, having a large number of students on Sensei's side doesn't actually make that much of a difference narratively, because all of those students have a really bad reputation, had a really bad history of Trinity anyway, and if they're all living in shitty conditions, I don't think they would have had any reason to really be with that second sensei. And maybe just for a reason to oppose Trinity, they would go with Sensei anyway. I don't know. Hanako and the Arius students? The moment they occupied the grand balcony, half of the students from the Arius branch aimed their guns towards the two members of the Tea Party. Both Nagisa and Seiya quickly read the room that they meant business. Every single one of the students' fingers were itching for the trigger. They made no sudden movements and tried their best to remain calm. The last thing they needed was to aggravate a whole platoon that was waiting for an excuse to lynch them. The other half swiftly formed a line of two, guiding a straight wide line in the middle so that Hanako could easily enter. Hanako walked until she was right in front of Nagisa and Seiya. As she was the only one standing, Hanako was looking down at the two nervous leaders who were half forced to be seated. The difference alone gave Hanako an aura of authority over them. After 6 months since Tea Party trios had their deranged fun, Hanako couldn't wait to demonstrate the long-deserved consequences that awaited them. But instead of giving to her desires, Hanako greeted the two leaders with a kind, but far from genuine smile. Good afternoon, Kirifuji, Yurizono. Justice was on her side. There was no reason for Hanako to sully her image because of petty impatience, when her revenge was already set in motion. She kept her mask on, enjoying every moment of seeing Nagisa and Seiya's disturbed faces. Next I'd ask Misono, but it seems she's not here. Hanako's eyes narrowed as she saw Mika's vacant seat. Her fake smile fell for a slight second, frustrated that she couldn't see the guilt-ridden look on Mika's face. If I remember correctly, Mika is in a really bad state right now. I suppose Hanako wouldn't know that, but yeah, I guess it sucks for her that she can't enact her desires on Mika personally, but I guess there's some solace for her that Mika is probably doing worse than these two are going to be doing. Hanako's eyes... No, I already read that part. Now that you mention it... Hey, where is that witch? One of the Arya students next to Hanako yelled at Nagisa about Mika's whereabouts. Her voice was void of any respect and manners, as if treating a wanted criminal. Nagisa flinched at the insult toward her best friend, and she shot a glare at the masked student, except for Seiya, who had clicked her tongue with disdain at the mention of Mika. Tss, probably being witch hunted as we speak. Serves her... Seiya! I understand the resentment you have against my friend, but Mika is a member of the Tea Party. I ask you to please address her with respect. Okay. So for some reason, Seiya is very harsh towards Mika right now, and I'm not sure if that's because Seiya participated in the whole sensei war thing. It wasn't a war, it was, being infatuated with the second sensei, as I've said 100 times. Mika clearly was, again, I'm not going to mention it again, but with Seiya speaking down on Mika, I don't know if she was part of, Sensei's original group, or the second sensei, the one who's dead. In that case, I don't know why she would be, bound like this, along with Nagisa, who I'm very assuming, very likely was on the same side as Mika, just out of force of habit and her own desires and lack of rationality, whatever. I don't know. The Arya student hit the side of Nagisa's head with the butt of her rifle. Groaning in pain, Nagisa fell off her chair and onto the floor. The elegant the elegant teacup the elegant teacup she held shattered on impact with the marble, its warm contents spilling at her white outfit, creating a light brown smudge. Nagisa, what is the meaning of this? Seiya stood up in panic until she heard the click of a gun. Sit down. Another Arya student aimed the barrel of her gun at Seiya right next to her left temple. Seiya gulped and dry saliva as she was forced back into her seat. Meanwhile, the student that struck Nagisa did the same thing, putting the Tea Party leader in front of the mercy of her barrel. Nagisa and Seiya turned to Hanako as she was the leader of the group. They looked at her helplessly, sending desperate looks with a message for help. But Hanako, as she silently smiled, simply ignored it by turning her eyes away to enjoy the outside view. I should just shoot you, like what you did to Sayori's group. Do you think we forgot about them? The Arya squad that you've killed? What are you talking about? It's Toki who's responsible for... Another blow was delivered to Nagisa, this time her right cheek. Shut up. Nagisa spit out air and saliva as she withered in pain like a twitching bug. The Arya student in the structure was fuming in rage. The veins on her hands twitched wildly while her fingers being dangerously close to the trigger. Yes, that bitch is the one who ended their lives. But what about you? The rest of the Tea Party? Do you want us to believe that you didn't have a say in this? Both Nagisa and Seiya twitched as they realized the meaning behind their words. They quickly tried to hide their reactions, but the truth was already out. The Arya students scoffed upon seeing their pitiful reaction. No, of course not. The Arias branch is partially owned by Trinity, and nothing goes over Trinity without the Tea Party's approval. There's no way you wouldn't have known that Millennium CNC was after the Arias squad. Or maybe it was the Tea Party who organized everything in the first place, to get rid of them. Us. Now, I'm not sure if... obviously, this is an alternate timeline. It's a stupid thing to say. But I'm not sure if in this scenario, Arias was not, acting as like a group of vigilantes, outlaws, as they are post V3. If they're working under some sort of official Arias branch, then it's possible... if we want to give this fic some credit, it's possible to imply that the second sensei saw all these rogue student groups, Arya 68, Rabbit, all those lone groups that still belong to some kind of academy yet act independently. It's possible that the second sensei saw that and was like, that's too much, it's too much variance. We need to have them all in one spot out of convenience for himself. It's possible to say that was what happened. I am hesitant to say that was actually what happened, but it's possible, given that clearly Arya's squad, the 4 that we know, was part of a larger Arya squad that is partially owned by Trinity, or Arya's branch. I don't know. It's nothing like that. Nagisa continued to deny it with her own words. Staying quiet only made it look as if she was acknowledging it. Deep in her mind, there was one thing that she never wanted to acknowledge. Meanwhile, the Arias' student's grip on her gun has tightened, straining the metal parts as it creaked in her hands. It aggravated her that Nagisa was still trying to talk, when her voice was the reason that made every student in the room want to strangle her. Soon, she raised her gun holding arm to deliver another blow to Nagisa, perhaps the throat this time so that the noisy leader could finally shut up. I thought I told you to shut up. I think that's enough, isn't it? I think I was giving Hanako's voice to the Arya student who apparently seems to have been interrogating them, but it's whatever. Hanako said with a generous smile as she placed her hand on the Arya student's shoulder, making her stop midway from hitting Nagisa. The student turned her head to face Hanako for a swift second before backing away from Nagisa, swiftly calming down her anger as she acted with discipline once again. My apologies, Hanako, Please forgive me. Yeah, so it wasn't marked with Hanako's name. I should have known that it wasn't Hanako. Oh, it doesn't matter. The art student apologized by bowing down, only till he lifted back up from Hanako, by Hanako. No, no, don't be. I have nothing but gratitude for you and all of your sisters. Don't lower your head, not even to myself. Stand proud, please. Hanako. The Arya student, including all the others, were moved by Hanako's warm words. Some even openly cried in beneath their masks. Everyone in Trinity, no, all of Kubotos hated them. Even before, after the Eden Treaty, it was all the same. Sensei, first one, was the only one who truly cared about them, a small light of hope in the cold darkness. But after the Faker appeared and stole his authority along with the heart of the students, that little speck of light had also been taken away. And after the entire Arya squad had been killed of attempted terrorism, their treatment became only worse, if that had been even possible. Every day was a living hell until that Faker died, and 3 weeks later, Sensei's return. Not only was Sensei treating and funding them even better than before, there was now Hanako, one of the few ones who stayed loyal leading them. She was nothing like Beatrice, a kind and wise leader. She promised to improve their treatment along with Trinity, and that was exactly what she did. It was almost like a dream, like the several years of torment were all but a bad nightmare. And today, it marked the start of a new day, one that even themselves could hope to dream. Now, of course, that's a powerful message, and I think that's all and well. Funnily, though, that tone would make little sense, even, with Arya Squad being dead and all that. That tone and attitude does make very little sense in canon, given that the whole story was about forgiveness and interconnecting and alliances and stuff like that. So, trying to take revenge on the Trinity branch, it makes sense in this story as well. And obviously, I shouldn't be looking at it through the lens of the canon story, but it just seems like a weird tonal shift that, I think the second sensei, as we've established, is just stupid, but, I really thought the second sensei was just interested in, sexual gratification. To have the Arya students killed, I don't know, maybe they tried to actually assassinate him for taking over the role of the first sensei. That's probable as well, and that would make sense why he ordered them to be killed. Yeah, all in all, you can make a reason for why it all makes sense, but just, I don't know, it's just my own biases. Hanako turned to Nagisa and, now, back to business at hand. I forgot to read that line. Hanako turned to Nagisa and Seiya, still keeping the same smile on her face, but the warmth and kindness, the fake one, had completely washed away, and in its stead, cold, calculative malice had taken its place. Nagisa and Seiya twitched in an unknown fear. There was a certain joy in Hanako's face, like a mischievous child that couldn't wait to pull a prank. And of course, hatred. Those two combined, they couldn't tell just what Hanako had in store for them. Would you kindly take a look at this, Kirifuji Yurizono? After getting handed from one of the Ari students, Hanako placed a set of files on the table for Nagisa and Seiya to see. Some cautious looks to the Ari students later, Nagisa managed to get up and Seiya to leave her chair. The two walked freely to the part of the table where the papers were placed, soon reading into the papers themselves. It didn't take long before their faces turned pale, eyes turning toward Hanako in disbelief. 50% of Tea Party's authority will be entrusted to the new member, Hanako? Co-signed by Shale and the GSC. It was official paperwork of Hanako's entry as the fourth and most authorized member of the Tea Party. Backed up by Shale and the GSC's approval, the terms were basically set in stone. I don't remember if Sensei had any authority like that, but at this point, challenging him would be a death sentence, so I guess it's fine. It was official paper... Nope. But there was a silver lining for the current Tea Party. Hanako's authority was still just 50%, which meant she wasn't in full control of the Tea Party and Trinity at that. Besides that, it wasn't going to be easy for Hanako with just the approval of outside forces. This was an issue taken within Trinity, meaning it was ultimately decided by Trinity students, the presidents from the clubs within the academy. Even if Hanako became the head of the Tea Party, without the club's approvals, it was impossible to lead Trinity all on her own. If the clubs and luck were on their side, it was possible for Nagisa and Seiya to make it a 60-40 against Hanako. And if they could snap Mika out of her demented state, convincing her to rejoin them, they could even look forward to a 70%. You are very formidable. You are very formidable, Hanako. But these papers don't do as much good as you thought. You can't just ignore Trinity's long-respected traditions. If you're planning to lead this academy, then you must follow Trinity's law. Come back after you've persuaded the clubs. It's so hard to talk in a low voice like that. I'm losing my hydration. And if you take a look on the next page. As Hanako said, there were a few more pages Nagisa and Seiya had yet to see. They quickly flipped to the next page, which shocked them even more. It was the signatures from all the students and presidents of every important club in Trinity. A perfect match of every distinct handwriting, all signed in agreement of Hanako. This is the JTF, Sisterhood, Remedial Knights. They all signed to you? When did you... On the way here, of course. They were all so eager to sign. Some came to me first before I even stopped by their club. Do you know that it barely took me an hour to get all their signatures until I came here? I'm so delighted that everyone's looking forward to working with me. Nagisa and Seiya stood defeated, dropping the papers as it slipped from their fingers. All their energy, their hopes drained away from them with every passing second. Their plans of ever rivaling Hanako was doomed before it even began. With all the important clubs now backing Hanako, she was the one to beat the 70 to their measly 30. Soon Hanako picked up the papers and kept it, as there was no reason to show it to the former leaders anymore. And she already got what she wanted, the hopeless faces of the Queen Serpents, their powers being stripped away right in front of them. So you see, Karifuji Yurizono, I guess you can say the game was rigged from the start. Wow, this chapter's long. I just checked the scroll bar. This might only be a video for one chapter only, because there's no way I can get through 2 chapters of this length in less than an hour. If Nagisa and Seiya's eyes weren't filled with fear, and they certainly were now. Except for a grand welcome ceremony, at this point Hanako was basically the new leader of Trinity. Which meant their fates were solely on the mercy of Hanako's. The memories of the old records flooded their heads, preparing for the worst. And what could be more worse than Trinity than that? Nagisa and Seiya began to tremble uncontrollably, along with the horrifying words that plagued Trinity's history, which could possibly be the very fate that awaited them. The Justina Council of Saints and its revival. What are you going to do with us? We're not sinners. What's the matter? Nobody said anything about doing something to you. Are you maybe afraid that you'll be kicked out of the tea party? Please, why would anyone do something so ridiculous? You will always be the shining example that everyone in Trinity aspires to be. Nobody can take that away. Contrast to their fearful faces, Hanako smiled innocently as if she was oblivious why they would be afraid in the first place. Then she took each of Nagisa's and Seiya's hands into hers, holding them gently like a loving mother would. I'm just here to show how happy I am to be part of this little club. Nobody's taking over anything, so relax. There's no need to feel threatened. In fact, we should be celebrating. Gleefully, Hanako pulled in Nagisa and Seiya to give them both a big hug. At that very moment, Hanako whispered into their ears in a voice that was almost to the point of being monotone. It was so calm and void of emotions, a direct contrast to her previous acts, and was downright frightening for the former Tea Party leaders, who were trembling in fear. Assumably. I'm only going to say this once, so listen carefully. You are going to follow every single one of my orders from now on without question. Don't ask, don't even think, just do as I say. Like how you've all been doing right now. I'm sure brainless birds like you are capable of doing that. I knew it. Why would we fall? Understood. Seiya? Unlike Nagisa, Seiya weakly nodded, pledging loyalty to Hanako without hesitation, as if she's just given up. Look at us, Nagisa. We're not in any position to argue. We failed Sensei. We failed Trinity. You can't. How can you call yourself a part of the Tea Party if you're just going to give up like that? Then, gritting her teeth in anger, Seiya glared at Nagisa as if one of those words had struck a nerve inside her. Give up? Like how when you and Mika did? By constantly pushing me to interact with that vile man? If it weren't for you two, I would have stayed loyal to Sensei. She would have stayed loyal to Sensei if you weren't loyal. Being swayed by Nagisa and Mika, especially after the events of V3, is not a very high thing to have happened to you. In fact, I would say that being persuaded by Nagisa and Mika as one of the heads of Trinity, and as someone who was previously thought to be the wisest member of Trinity, being persuaded by both of them to go along with someone who you barely know, and it was supposed to be some replacement to someone who's already shown his credibility, is very idiotic. Like, I understand peer pressure and she doesn't want to be an outcast yet again, but knowing all the character development that happened post V3, it makes frankly no sense for any of them, but Seiya specifically, to have gone along with them just because they were pressuring her. It doesn't really seem in character for Seiya, as she's shown to be very independent. It's overall, it's just, this makes no sense, especially with what she was saying, criticizing Mika at the very beginning of the chapter. It makes no sense that she went along with them anyway. It makes no sense at all. She should not be in this predicament. And yeah, maybe it'd be a little narratively bankrupt if she went along with Hanako's team because she somehow stayed loyal to Sensei and somehow didn't do anything when Nagisa and Mika gave the command to kill the Artery Squad, whatever. It's just stupid. Where am I? Oh, here. Never mind. I just looked at this line and everything I said just doesn't fucking matter. Don't blame this on me. I know the way you saw that man every time he visited. If you hated it so much, why didn't you just push him away? Why'd you... Are we done bickering like children? I gave Seiya, so much credit. She's smart. She shouldn't act because of the others so easily. She's better than that. Nope. Turns out she's as dumb as the other two. All right. Whatever. Yep, it's fine. Get rid of them. It doesn't matter. If you don't want them on the good side, just make them fucking stupid. It's fine. Before they could raise their voices any further, Hanako physically silenced both Nagisa and Seiya by choking them with her hands while hugging. Only after they nodded to behave, Hanako released their fragile necks from her grasp. Hanako kept whispering and urged the two to follow foot. You don't seem to understand how dire you really are. So I'll help you understand. I know. Excuse me? That the Tea Party provided intelligence of the Arya Squad. The day before their deaths by Asuma Toki. Nagi-sensei's halo flickered for a short second. They hadn't said anything, yet the trembling of their bodies didn't seem to stop as their hearts raced faster by every second. Keep your voices down. We don't want anyone to hear this, do we? Sure, everyone sounding out Tea Party couldn't have known about the Arya Squad's impending doom. But since there's no proof, it's only speculation at best. Unless someone has access to that proof? Nonsense. We weren't involved with the Arya Squad. And then why do you look so nervous? Leave me out of this. I already made my decision to follow you. That you did. Now that just leaves you, Kirifuji. As if she'd lost interest, Hanako let Seiya free from her embrace, leaving the petite party leader to crawl up into a fetal position as she broke down in tears. Now it was just Nagisa on Hanako's arms, the two shackles that will never let go until she got the answer she wanted. You like suspecting things, don't you, Kirifuji? Well, try to suspect that there is evidence that links the Arya Squad to the Tea Party. And suspect that would happen if... Suspect what would happen if that goes public. Would that make you and Yurizono sinners? Just like Misono? What would Sensei think of you? What would Hifumi think of you? Do you think she'd ever want to be friends with you ever again? This is more a gripe with how it's written, not the plot itself. Writing Hanako's crash out in capital letters, it doesn't make any sense. Even if Hanako is crashing out here, she is a very calm student. So I do like the bold text stylistic choice, that's fine. But having the capital letters, I know it varies from person to person, but I think most people would agree that capital letters are very indicative of yelling, right? Capital letters is yelling. And the reason why I didn't yell those words out is that it's not very in character for Hanako to suddenly yell all these gripes to make Nagisa feel the distress. As we saw earlier with the monotone line, which is the Hanako, I'm willing to say this once, listen carefully. her strength is in her emotional control. So her, suddenly yelling here doesn't actually make it more intimidating. It actually makes it less intimidating, seeing that Hanako is losing control of her emotions. If she was actually, I don't know if she's actually, I forgot I could zoom in. I'm on my iPad right now. I forgot that I could zoom in and like highlight text and see what's active. It just takes so long, so I can just do that in post. But either way, it's just in general, like, I don't like writing in capital letters if people are screaming. It just feels over dramatic, and that's why a lot of people too say don't use a lot of exclamation marks, because the more your characters use strong outward emotions, the less expressive they end up being because of their overuse of those extreme emotions. In this case, it's well too that Hanako's strongest emotions can be expressed with her speaking them completely monotone. The way you write Hanako effectively, I think the calmer she speaks, the more intimidating she is. So actually, that's a good way to manipulate her words to show her emotions, where the more expressive she is, the calmer you know she is, and the less expressive she is, the more you know that it's a tense situation for her. And the more she needs to keep control of her emotions, the more extreme her emotions actually are. So in this case, one would say that in this tone, obviously she's not. But if in other scenarios where Hanako would be really expressive like this, I would actually assume that she's in a really good mood and that everything is going right. Because otherwise, if it was a situation where she would need to instill fear in someone, her speaking in a completely calm manner is exactly what she would need to do. I know I rambled a lot about Hanako due to one sentence that is a stylistic choice, but I just crashed out about Seiya like 5 minutes ago, and I'm just completely done. I'm completely done, and the progress bar shows that we are halfway through the chapter. It's just a fucking mess. It's a mess. But we are going to continue going, and my iPad's about to show the 10% battery warning. So if that... yeah, whatever. Nagisa broke down in tears like a helpless baby. Her unwavering pride at the tea party had become like the shattered teacup on the floor. Nothing more than useless trash. Hanako couldn't care less how she just utterly destroyed Nagisa. All she cared about was receiving a straight answer from her. Her vows of obedience. So, your answer? Whatever you say, Hanako. Good girl. Again, like, no, whatever. I've spoken too much about it. I get really pressed over the most useless things, and whatever. After stroking her long hair gently like a girl would do to her favorite doll, Hanako released Nagisa, who then covered her entire face with both her hands as she cried her eyes out. Could you kindly escort these two outside? It seems they're in need of fresh air. Everyone else too, I would appreciate if you'd offer me some time alone. As you wish, Hanako. Hanako said as she turned to the other students, and they followed by taking Nagisa and Seiya out the door as themselves, almost pushing them to keep walking like one would treat a criminal. Now that she was finally alone, Hanako let out a huge sigh. She then calmly took her rifle, releasing the safety, and aimed it at the luxurious tea table. Okay, well, let's just read through this first. Hanako unloaded all of her bullets into the tea party's meeting balcony, destroying the fancy table, seats, and expensive silverware into pieces. Whenever she ran out, she reloaded and continued to fire again. She was going to make sure that everything was destroyed. After her gun rang empty, she threw it to the side while looking down at the destruction as she gasped for air. The horrid images played inside Hanako's head. She could see it right now. Trinity's finest trio misusing their authorities, wasting the school's precious resources solely to pleasure that silver-tongued snake. They'd praise him of his accomplishment, which was only capable because of the other sensei. They'd laugh, make fun of Sensei of how inferior he is after everything he'd done for the students, bringing order and hope to Kyoto's and its inhabitants. Fuck, I forgot this was an explicit fanfiction. It's like, can you make it any more obvious? Like, I was reading a decent, semi-decent revenge plot, and then we just had to include redo of healer. I forgot this was basically redo of sensei, but it's not even like the redo. It's not even the redo part. It's the other sensei. It just makes. Oh, there's a 10% battery warning while I'm crashing out. Okay. And they moan, flesh mingling with flesh, whispering treacherous love for each other as they defile this horrible place with disgusting lies and selfish lust. A place that once meant something, open only to those who were ready to withstand the responsibility. And the three turned it into something vile and unforgivable. Can Mika wouldn't be swayed by that? Like, Nagisa maybe? Because she's, like, weird. Nagisa's weird, and Seiya's also kind of weird. But Seiya's, like, more in control of her emotions, and Mika is so innocently and romantically in love with Sensei that it makes no sense for her to fall into her desires the second Sensei. It makes zero sense. But plot is plot, whatever. Oh, look, there's a vertical line at the bottom. Hopefully, we can move on. Just thinking about the betrayal had brought blood to Hanako, biting her lower lips, the bitter taste of blood spreading in her mouth. Her nails digging through her hands, the lukewarm liquid dripping onto the white marble floor. I thought we made a difference. With Sensei's help, I truly believed this place was no longer a snake pit. But no, it was a goddamn hydra's nest. Cut a serpent's head and 2 more takes its place. No matter. Then I shall crush, burn, and grind their heads to dust so that they'll never think of hurting Sensei ever again. If I have to lead these twisted serpents to achieve it, then so be it. The head of the tea party, the new leader of Trinity, was born, and she promised 2 things under her new rule. Forever ensuring Sensei's position of authority. Forever ensuring Sensei's position of power and authority by using the vile serpents she hated, and punishing those who have and will dare challenge her law until everyone in Trinity became good little girls. Sensei, I'll make sure this won't happen again. I swear it. I don't know. Ifumi, okay. Oh, I saw Akko and Hina's names. Okay, so Gehenna does show up. That's good to know that we won't be stuck with Trinity forever. Like, obviously, I don't hate Trinity, but, like, it's just, I don't know, that's, like, compared to the scene with Alice, just this scene is just because Seiya is not as naive as GDD, and Mika is not as emotionally free. Like, this is actually a benefit to her character outside of this story. Mika is very emotionally bound to Sensei. And this is the 30,000th time I'm going to say this. It makes no sense for Mika to be in this situation. Like, in GDD's case, chapter 2, where Arisu crashed out on the GDD, that made slightly more sense, because those students are a little more naive, just because they're younger and they don't have managerial experience, so they don't understand the necessity of masterful emotional control. So it makes slightly more sense for them to have been swayed. And I mean, Alice herself, you know, Alice wasn't written amazingly, but it made somewhat of sense in the context of this story for her character to act the way it did. You know, remorse, disappointment, shock, and then turn to crash out anger. That made a lot of sense. It made as much sense as it could, and I was actually pretty fond of that second chapter. Being halfway through this chapter, I'm so exhausted. It's, again, I made this point in the previous review of this fanfic. I'm not exactly... I'm clearly not the target audience for this. Like, it's not that I'm put off by this genre of work, this hurt no comfort, hurt slight comfort for the other characters, but hurt no comfort, revenge plot, if it was called revenge plot. Like, I don't mind that, and that's why we're going through this with relatively little problem. The only problem, and the big problem, is that it's just so out of character, and the prologue did not give us enough time to establish why everyone was acting out of character. Sexual lust? Are we serious? That's not enough of a reason, in my opinion. Not enough to justify Mika or like half of the other students. It doesn't matter who I name. It does not make sense. Now, obviously, like I'm, preaching to the choir here. I wouldn't really know how to make this effective, but just generically speaking, there needs to be a reason why the students were favoring the second sensei, a realistic reason. Like, for the sake of the revenge plot, it's fine that the second sensei was not a good person, so that the betrayal feels all that more devastating, and not like, oh, it makes sense, like just survival instincts. No, obviously there was no survival instincts. There's just fucking sexual instinct. I don't know, bro. They're all not at the age where that should matter, but given the way they treated Sensei in the prologue as harshly as they did for something as stupid as sexual gratification and infatuation, it doesn't feel like there was enough of a reason for them to act that way. I probably said that in the previous review. I probably said that the reasoning for them to all turn against Sensei wasn't enough. And again, like I said, like this is not the story for me. Like, obviously, there are some people who find great pleasure in the fact that all these students are suffering for their misdeeds in the prologue chapter, regardless of whether their misdeeds are realistic or not. Obviously, if that's what people are into, whatever, they can have their fun to some extent. But, like, in the conversation of having a good story, this is not it. Like, this, where the vision was there, and the vision can be executed semi-well. It just, in this case, I think the author was so quick to get into this whole ordeal that we didn't spend enough time establishing why all of this push-pull and crashing out is justified. It's not justified. Well, the crashing out is justified. It's completely justified. But the actions that caused the crash out were not justified. That's the problem. Are we seriously killing 4 students for sex? For sex. With some guy. It's like would you kill the Arya squad for $1 billion? Would you kill the Arya squad for a one-night stand? It couldn't even have been that good. It could not have even been that good. And now we're just going off the rails with our complaints. Like, now I'm complaining about Sensei's technique. Like, there's no way it was that. I've lost it. No, I've lost it because there's no way that that's the next thing to talk about. Like, we have a half of a chapter to go over, and I'm just talking about whether the second Sensei was good at it or not. Whatever, man. I think that's everything. Oh, but this one. Hifumi wiped off the sweat from her brow, before taking one last look of her precious Perero backpack. Except for the essentials, her room was now as bland as the day she first entered Trinity. All her Perero merchandise that gave her private space, color, and life was neatly organized in a box, leaving only the backpack in her hands, which she had carried with her every day. I'm so sorry, Perero, but for the sake of Sensei, I have to do everything that I can to help him. I have to become more capable than that person. Her hands gripped the backpack with bitter resentment, but not enough to actually harm her precious Perero. The promised time with Hanako was coming closer. She was going to be late until she made a decision, but it was harder than she'd thought. She didn't want to leave Perero behind, but at the same time, the stronger part of herself reminded the promise she had made, that she had to grow up. Even if it means I have to leave you here, but I promise I'll come back to see you every day, so please wait for me here, okay? Hifumi gave her prized Perero backpack one big hug before putting it inside her box. Her hands shook in hesitation, but she managed to place the box inside the closet, and for the first time left the room without the reassuring presence of Perero by her side. It wasn't her last goodbye, as Hifumi would see Perero-sama again that night, but this was a small but big step that even she did not realize. That would give her the resolve and strength to withstand the unknown paths that lay before her. As Hifumi headed down to where Hanako was, she met Nagisa, who was just on her way to meet her dear friend. She certainly had seen better days. Her beautiful hair was untreated and messy like the strains from a broom. Her white classy uniform was dirty with a noticeable light brown smudge on it, and now that she'd been able to take a good look at Nagisa, her cheek had fresh bruises as if she had just gotten beaten up. She seemed more like a patient who escaped a mental hospital, rather than one of the high-class leaders of Trinity. Hifumi. Nagisa noticed Hifumi as she ran to her close friend with delight, only for Hifumi to walk past her as if she was a stranger. Hifumi. Nagisa's face twisted with despair. Don't go. I want to apologize, so please. Her eyes started to water as she desperately held onto Hifumi's hand, in which Hifumi immediately swatted the delicate hand away like some kind of filth, looking at her as well. Nagisa. No, Kirifuji. Sensei trusted you, and you betrayed that. You betrayed my trust. I don't want to see you. I hate you. Now, see, for Hifumi, it's completely reasonable for her to yell. That's completely in character, and she has exclaimed her emotions multiple times. So this makes perfect sense. And Nagisa's crash out in a couple lines is also makes... I mean, it's never happened before, so we could assume that Nagisa, who is the type to be a little irrational at times, is probably reasonable as well. After yelling out her venom-filled words, Hifumi ran towards the opposite direction. I'm not voicing that. Nagisa's gut-wrenching cries behind her. Hifumi covered her ears to block it. It's a motorcycle outside. If she hadn't, she would have... No. Nagisa's gut-wrenching cries behind her. Nagisa's gut-wrenching cries were behind her, but Hifumi covered her ears to block it. Otherwise, she would have wanted to look back. Why did things have to be this way? Almost out of breath, she stopped, leaning against a lamppost to take a breather. It broke Hifumi's heart that she had just expressed the person that she had looked up to with so much hate. Something Hifumi herself didn't know she had. This was wrong. This wasn't her. The despair and pain ate at her from inside. But soon, Hifumi struck her chest with her fist as if to put a stop to it. It was slow, but eventually it ceased. Even all of this. The pain and misery infecting Kivotos. Just like the pain in her chest, it was going to pass. Hifumi had no doubt that it will. I have to become stronger. For Sensei. For everyone. She swallowed the tears that started to well up, hoping for a day that they could put aside all of this and become friends again. With that goal in mind, Hifumi walked forward with determination. Okay, so after thinking about it while reading, I've come to the conclusion that this type of story works best with characters who were previously very cheerful and very friendly. The reason for that is that Akasaka here is very intent on extracting all of those really strong emotional responses, and characters who were previously very friendly and very nice, possibly naive, mostly innocent, are very receptive to that. Like, it makes a lot of sense for those characters to have the strongest emotional responses in this situation. And that's why Alice, her chapter worked very well. And Hifumi's snippet here, while it was very short and it didn't really have a chance to establish much, it sort of makes sense. Like, I already mentioned how Hifumi yelling makes more sense than Hanako, obviously. But trying to draw similarities between the two chapters, it makes sense. Like, Arisu and Hifumi are similar characters in nature. Like I said, they're very innocent, they're very friendly, they're very cheerful, they're very optimistic. So things turning on 180 completely clashes with their character. So their only reaction is strong emotion. On the other hand, characters like Hanako... Was there any characters that complained? Like, anytime I complained about characters, I remember in the previous part, whenever I was complaining about characters, the characters I was usually complaining about are characters that are very level-headed. And Hanako is part of that camp. Hanako is a character that I expect to be very level-headed. And I was complaining a lot about Seiya, who is a little emotionally rough, but mentally, normally is also pretty strong. So for that reason, that's why the characters that have the biggest problems within this story are the characters that are normally very level-headed, because it makes the least sense for them to be acting the way they are as portrayed in this story. And so Azusa coming up next, she should be fine as her emotions bounce a lot. Like, Koharu would probably make complete sense because she is like the most naive of all the four. I like when I was scrolling down earlier as I was crashing out, I saw Akko and Hina. Akko makes a lot of sense as well because Akko is very emotionally sidelined. Akko is very emotionally like 180 bipolar, honestly bipolar. I don't know if I assume she actually had nothing to do with the second sensei because she loved Hina so much and Hina loved the original sensei so much that nothing could change that. Maybe, I don't know. It's about to be a 5% warning as well. Oh, this last 3 paragraphs or 2.5. Okay. In an isolate alleyway, Azusa loads an array of explosives, weapons, and unknown canisters inside a big black duffel bag. Besides the dangerous objects were 5 headshots of the CNC and blue schematics for 5 different buildings. Out of 5 photos, one belonged to a certain Asuma Toki, a knife-sized hole that had punctured the emotionless girl's forehead. Sayori, Atsuko, Hiyori, Misaki, wherever you are, I hope you found peace there. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. Asuma Toki, I'm coming for you. I won't kill you, oh no. You don't deserve the release of death. I won't risk the likes of you setting foot in the same place as my fallen sisters. As a sole survivor of the Arias squad, I'll show you the true meaning of despair. Well, this was shown at the end of the first chapter, or the second chapter. Azusa zipped the duffel bag shut and lifted it on her shoulders with ease, wearing a black and blue cap as she disappeared among the crowd. Oh, here's Koharu. Koharu shoved all her belongings that she had left at the JTF club room. After her bag was full, she headed for the exit, determined to never come back. Hasumi tried to stop her from leaving, maybe reason with her, but as her hand got closer to Koharu, she slapped it away from her. Don't touch me. I looked up to everyone. I wanted to be just like all of you. Oh, and it's 5% warning. To one day become as strong as all of you, so that I can protect the ones I care about. I might not be as bright, but even I know what justice is. To do the right thing. What you did to Sensei, to me, and the makeup club wasn't justice. If that's what this club stands for, you all deserve the death penalty. Koharu stormed out of the club with no one able to stop her. Meanwhile, at Gehenna, the sound of sharp shattering rang inside the prefect office. Oh, never mind. Okay, whatever. Do it again. Aka stumbled as hot coffee was spread all over her face after Hina threw the cup straight to her face and shattering it. Shinatsu and Iori were also present in the office, but either one didn't dare run out to help Akko, as it would only make them Hina's new target. Soon, Akko calmed down along with the coffee's heat on her face. She was about to walk back to her desk and continue the paperwork, but today she stood her ground. It had been 2 weeks of constant abuse from Hina, as she had reached her limit to stay quiet. Hina also noticed a change of attitude, as her eyes narrowed to see what kind of excuses her previous secretary had to say. I only partook in the agreement to protect you, head prefect. You don't honestly believe I believed that. Hina scoffed as if she heard a bad joke. Akko flinched as her confession was shot down from the start, but once her feelings started to leak out, there was no stopping it. If you had just pretended to follow, they would have left you alone. I didn't know what that Trinity trash would do that to you. Believe me, I fought hard for you. Then maybe you should have fought harder. No matter what Akko said, it all fell to deaf ears for Hina. The sorrow inside Akko that had been building up for the past weeks had finally reached the boiling point, as Akko's feelings came flooding out as well as her tears. It's not my fault. Why are you treating me like this? My loyalty was always with you. Why are you abandoning me? A swift kick to Akko's leg later, Hina stood up. What? Oh, okay. A swift kick to Akko's leg later, Hina stood up, stringing Akko's neck with her right hand. There was no flesh and bones beneath her lower thighs, but instead sleek black metal. Her supposed-to-be gone legs had been replaced with advanced prosthetics made by Bloodname's engineering club. Every part was freely movable from the top and 10 toes on the bottom, including sensors that replaced the severed nerves of her legs. With a sleek design, it was extremely sturdy and light, able to match Hina's speed and power in combat. The pure black color of the mechanical legs had added to Hina's intimidating aura, sending fear to her enemies and her traitorous subordinates. Hiyori, Misaki, Atsuko, Sayori, the few ones who fought for a sensei, all dead. Everyone else hurt Sensei and the others, including me. Where were you, Akko? You were supposed to help us. Where were you when Sensei and I needed you the most? With them, pretending to be someone that you're not. You abandoned me. Is this a brief... What's going on? Koharu screamed out loud at the sight of Akko being choked right after she entered the room. Hina loosened her grip on Akko while the other two prefect members immediately turned to face the shocked Koharu, as it was certainly a surprise why a Trinity student would come to Gehenna, the prefect club no less. You're Shimoe Koharu. All of you out. On Hina's command, the three prefect members rushed out the door without making a sound. Koharu stood in place, stealing glances at the still open door. Does that include me? No, you just got there. Come on in. Hina returned back to her desk as she welcomed Koharu inside. The demon-like face she showed to Akko had calmed down greatly and showed a genuine smile to Koharu. The gap of Hina's attitude was so vast that Koharu hesitated to enter right away, taking a whole 10 seconds to muster her courage to just enter. So, how can I help you? Okay. Hina, please train me. Huh? Out of the blue, Koharu begged Hina to train her. Hina was caught off guard by the young Trinity student that had suddenly barged in the room and was now kneeling in front of her, groveling with her head almost planted to the ground. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Why do you want me to train you? Because I'm weak. If I had done something, if I was more stronger, I could have saved the people Azusa cared about. I don't want to experience that anymore. I boast about being an elite, but right now, I'm useless. That's why I want to become stronger, more than my senpais, so that I can protect Sensei and everyone when it matters. But I don't have a lot of people who I can count on. So please... Hina kept silent for a good 30 seconds. Koharu fidgeted nervously, worrying if Hina would refuse her offer. I guess I'll have to change my schedule. Then, Hina finally showed a reaction, taking a closer look at the calendar on her desk, until turning back to Koharu, she gave her answer. You mean... Every day, 10 p.m. Make sure you're not late. Okay. Thank you. The same day, Koharu found Wakamoe and gave her the same favor and reasoning. Her left eye, covered in a flower-engraved black eye patch, Wakamoe lended out her hand as she lifts Koharu off the ground. Very well. If you could become someone suitable enough to protect my darling, I will happily be... I'm sorry, Wakamoe, you don't deserve that. Very well. If you could become someone suitable enough to protect my darling, I will happily oblige. Why can't I say happily? Darling, you mean Sensei? Indecent. Death, I beg your pardon. Never mind. Just so to be clear, I have no intention on going easy on you, no matter how much you cry. Darling's life could be on the line, and I will do whatever it takes so that you'll be worthy enough for that responsibility. Do you understand? I do. I won't quit, no matter what. I thought you were just a helpless chick the first time I saw you. But now I'm beginning to believe you just might have what it takes to become a hawk. Better than that pink-haired vulture, that's for sure. The other paths were different. The makeup club, the new rising stars of Trinity had chosen their way, not knowing what their decisions would bring to the future of Kivodas. It's over. What I appreciate most about this chapter, if there was anything to appreciate, is Koharu. I do think the nature of Koharu's character, it makes the most sense for her to be doing all of this. Koharu, despite not being, maybe even canonically the weakest character of the Makeup Work Club, is probably the most determined out of all of them. And even though Aria's squad was the closest to Azusa, Koharu's sense of justice alone probably makes her more determined to make things right than Azusa. And that's not supposed to be like a justice scaling take. I'm just saying that, it is really nice to see that Koharu is taking such big leaps in such drastic times to change herself and be someone actually capable physically, not just mentally. That said, it's probably going to be very difficult. So if this change happens quickly, I'm going to be a little sad about that. Not that I want, half of this story to be a fucking Koharu training montage, but Koharu powering up to be strong enough to protect Sensei as a lone soldier is not going to be easy, and it's not even going to be mildly difficult. It's going to be very challenging. But I believe Koharu can do it because Koharu is a very strong student and one of my favorite characters for that reason. Anyway, I aired my grievances immensely during that, whatchamacallit. Then you go to the next chapter. Next chapter, No Faith, part 1 of 2. Okay. Yeah, I already complained a lot about Hanako's tone, and then Seiya being what the hell character. Mika's locked in some dungeon, being torn limb from them or something, whatever. Azusa got 2 snippets that were completely identical from one chapter to the other. Not identical, but like the information they gave me was like literally the same. I learned nothing new about Azusa. As for Hifumi, yeah, she broke ties with Nagisa, but that was expected. You didn't need to show me that, but for the gratification, that's fine. And, foreshadowing Koharu's arc is also really cool. Overall, plot-wise, it was not bad. Trinity, with being such a big school, there's a lot of freedom you have with it. And also, again, we haven't seen Ibuki yet, but maybe Ibuki's just, like, emotional support and, friends with Alice or whatever. Other than that, yeah, this chapter overall was fine. It was okay. Like I said, in spite of all the complaints I had about Hanako and Seiya, most of those were just the tonal dissonance from the canon story and really not much to do with the story itself. Like, if these characters acted differently in canon, this story would probably make a lot more sense, but they don't, and so it makes a lot less sense. But, creative liberty and author's vision fetish, clearly, because we got the most random R18 snippet out there that I'm just going to include, I guess, unless I decide that my voice reading those words is not worth your time of day. Other than that, that will conclude this portion of the review, because that was as long as chapters 1 and 2 combined. The Trinity chapter is so fucking long. What was the one called No Faith? 1 of 2? I am not looking forward to that. But, yep, that is 3 chapters of Repent so far. I suspect it is only going to get worse from here. But hopefully after we've gone through all of the initiation stuff and things, actually, then again, like, we're setting up all this stuff in a way that makes me assume that Sensei has a bigger opponent to face. Like, are these people going to retaliate against Sensei after having wronged him once? Like, obviously they are all remorseful because they know they fucked up. So, like, what's the point of... after all the changes, what's going to happen next? Are they all just going to suffer for even more? What's the point? I don't know. It's like, I know Koharu training just so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. But, like, I don't know what scenario is going to require that for this story. But I guess that's something for the far future. And given that there is 145,000 words of this shit, I don't know if I will get there. But we are... chapter-wise, 3/20 of the way there, that's 15%. Whatever. Just until the next one, I guess.